Have you ever been on a plane, looked out the window at the world below, and just wondered, how in the world does the pilot know where to go? When they're flying just by looking outside, it's not as simple as spotting landmarks. No, it's like they're reading a secret language, one that's written on a special map that makes the invisible world visible.
Right, so how do they do it? How do they navigate a sky that's packed with invisible boundaries, unseen highways, and all sorts of potential dangers? How do they see what the rest of us can't?
Well, this is the answer. It's called a VFR sectional chart. And I know, at first glance, it looks like an absolute mess, right? Just a crazy jumble of lines, colors, and symbols. But this is the key. Every single mark on this map tells a pilot a piece of a story. And today, we're going to crack that code together. So first things first, let's get a handle on what this pilot's secret map actually is. This chart is the #1 tool for any pilot flying under what's called Visual Flight Rules, or VFR. And all VFR really means is that they're navigating mostly by what they can see out the window.
The best way to think about it is like a super detailed roadmap, but with a whole other layer of information, aeronautical information, packed on top. It literally shows pilots where they can land, what invisible walls in the sky they have to avoid, and how to steer clear of dangerous obstacles. It is, no joke, a pilot's lifeline. Okay, so where do we even begin with a map this dense? Well, every flight has a destination, right? So let's start there. The most basic symbols you need to know are for airports. This is where the code really starts to unfold. And the first rule of decoding airports is actually really simple. It's all about the color. If you see a blue airport symbol, that airport has a control tower. If the symbol is magenta, it doesn't. Just by seeing that one color, a pilot knows instantly whether they'll be talking to air traffic controllers or if they'll just be coordinating with other pilots over the radio. So blue means you talk to the tower, magenta means you talk to each other. Simple as that. But the detail goes so much deeper. See those little tick marks around the circle? That's code for services are available, things like fuel. See that little star on top of this symbol? That tells a pilot there's a rotating beacon, which is absolutely essential for finding that airport at night. And if you just see a plain circle with no runway drawn inside, well, you're probably looking at a simple grass strip. All right, so we know where to land, but how do we actually get there? The sky isn't just this big, open, empty space. It's actually structured with these invisible highways and boundaries. I want you to think of it like a massive, complex road system. Just, without any pavement. And this is what that system looks like on the chart. All these lines and colors define different types of airspace, and each one has its own set of rules you have to follow for entry and communication. Pilots have to know this stuff cold. Let's start with the big one, Class B airspace. You'll see it marked by these thick, solid blue lines. And here's a great way to remember it. Think B for big and blue. This is the really congested, busy airspace you'll find around the country's biggest airports. We're talking Orlando, New York, LA. Okay, stepping down a level, you have Class C airspace. That's shown with a solid magenta line. These airports are still plenty busy, they have control towers and radar, but they're just not quite on the massive scale of a huge international hub. And next up, we've got Class D airspace, which you can spot by its dashed blue line. This usually surrounds a smaller airport that, yes, still has a control tower, but sees a lot less traffic than a Class C. And, to really drive that highway analogy home, the chart also shows these light blue lines called Victor Airways. These are literally the official highways in the sky that planes flying on instrument plans use to get from one place to another. So navigation is one thing, but safety is everything. A huge part of being able to read this chart is about spotting what could go wrong. It's a pilot's main tool for seeing and avoiding all kinds of obstacles. See these little symbols? They kind of look like upside-down V's with a dot underneath. Those are obstructions. They could be anything. Cell phone towers, radio antennas, wind turbines, basically anything tall enough to be a real danger to an aircraft flying low. Now, there's this brilliant, if slightly morbid little trick to remember how to read these numbers. The top number is the obstacle's height above mean sea level. That's what the plane's altimeter shows. The bottom number, the one in parentheses, is how tall the obstacle is from the ground up. So, the top number is what your altimeter will read if you hit it. The bottom number is how far you'll fall. Yikes! And it's not just physical towers you have to look out for. The chart also maps out big chunks of the sky that have special rules. These are places with things like military flight training, and you definitely want to know where they are.
And you guessed it, color is key once again. Blue hash marks basically scream stay away. These are prohibited or restricted areas, and you either can't go in at all or you need very special permission. Magenta hash marks, on the other hand, are more of a caution sign. These are things like military operations areas. You can fly through them, but you better be on high alert for fast-moving military jets. Okay. Wow, we've covered airports, airspace, and hazards. So let's try to bring it all together and see how a pilot uses this map to figure out exactly where they are by looking at the real world down below. You see this little magenta flag? That's a VFR checkpoint. It marks a really obvious landmark. Could be a lake, a unique bridge, a big group of towers, something that's super easy to spot from the air. A pilot can fly over it, get on the radio, and tell air traffic control, hey, I'm over the Bithlow Towers. And just like that, everybody knows exactly where they are. So, let's circle all the way back to the beginning. Remember this chaotic map we started with? Take another look. It probably seems a little different now, doesn't it? Because now your eyes can actually start to prick things out. You can instantly tell the difference between a towered airport and a non-towered one just by the color. You can see those bold blue lines of that busy Class B airspace. You can spot the symbols for towers and even know how tall they are. And you can find those little magenta flags pilots use to check in. The code, it's starting to make sense. And that's why this isn't just some dusty old map. It is the fundamental tool for flying visually. As the folks at M0A Flight Training say, it's the primary means of navigation that pilots use. It's the bridge that connects the instruments in the cockpit to the real world outside. It really just goes to show you that even a world that seems incredibly complex can be understood if you just learn its coded language. We've barely scratched the surface of how to read the sky today. But it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secret languages are hiding all around us in plain sight, just waiting to be decoded?